Hello, RoahmMythril here once again, getting back to Mammal 3, and it's time for Judge Commentary, though today we only have the one stage to get through. 107th place, Assault Hunt by Zatsupachi. This stage got a 48.42 total, with a 17 in design, 11.8 in fun, 11 in creativity, 9.2 in aesthetics, 4.8 in functionality, but with a 10% time penalty. Mick. I didn't expect that first song to be so soothing. Definitely one of my future picks for relaxation music. Interesting setup in general for an intro, though I somewhat question the necessity of it. As for the actual level, there's a right way and a wrong way to do combat levels, and this is a little of both. The concept is nice and it's fun to rack up my score, but the implementation can fall a bit flat. This isn't the fault of the enemy types. They're excellent options for the concept, though sometimes the swarms can become an outright clusterfuzzy. Rather, it's the strict multiplier that creates issues. If you die for any reason, whatever you've racked up is gone. It also doesn't freeze going through screen transitions or when enemies stop spawning. The jet section is easily the worst for this. Even without the multipliers, either nothing is happening or the screen's an absolute mess. It's not fun either way. Now, if you're going for just the energy element, this isn't terrible. It takes practice to get used to the swarms, as well as some strategic weapon selection, but the level is manageable. One of the things that helps is not every room is a swarm. People need breaks to do something else, and there's definitely enough platforming to provide that. Although I wish the snipers couldn't shoot me from off-screen. Pulls respect boundaries. That said, if you want all 5 tokens, the sheer amount of grinding required for S rank is infuriating. You basically have to be perfect, and or you have to squeeze nearly every last screen dry. I've seen worse optionals, yes, but this isn't fun regardless. The other core issue is with the boss fights. Not for their concepts. The Elite shows have fair patterns and interesting arenas, and Assault Man is incredibly fair, despite how much ground he covers. However, these feel like they're only barely holding together, particularly Assault Man. I'm pretty sure he's not supposed to sail through the air while he's firing machine gun bullets every which way, and his aim is so bad I have to try to get hit by that attack. I also see him get shunted out of the terrain more than usual, which makes me very glad he's not been shunted out of the room yet. These are fun fights, but their apparent instability has me worried. Shinryu. Oh lord, this is one hectic stage, and to be fair, I at least understand why. It's clearly based on Metal Slug, and flooding the screen with enemies/bullets is commonplace for run-and-gun games like that, but I don't think that was translated very well here in the context of Mega Man's usual gameplay. There's so much chaos during certain sections that it can be a little hard to tell what's happening. I guess in a way some of the more simplistic looking graphics here help with that, given you don't want anything too distracting with so many bullets flying around, though that doesn't fully excuse them or the highly compressed JPEG backgrounds. Regardless, you're still going to be taking a lot of hits here once the enemies start spawning more frequently. The stage being very glitchy and unstable also doesn't help matters. For frame of reference, here's a list of the technical issues that I ran into during my time with it. The meter for the score multiplier bonus sometimes goes down after killing an enemy, but most of the time it doesn't. At least, I assume that the meter going down is how it's supposed to work. It's a little hard to tell due to how inconsistent it is. Dying to the mini-boss of the Rush Jet segment straight up crashed the game on me. Oh dear. The last mini-boss has serious sprite alignment issues while zipping around. The end boss often got stuck in the wall, thus either neutering the fight completely or prematurely ending it as he zipped off screen and died. Oops. Even if you do manage to cope with these bugs and get through the enemy spam, however, one thing you can't brute force your way around are the tokens. While I get what you were going for, I think the points needed to get each one should have been more lenient. I had to sit in one part of the stage and grind for points just to get the final rank needed for all the tokens. And when I need to divert my attention away from the larger points of interest in the level, just to ensure I can get everything it has to offer, something has definitely gone wrong. Topping all this off would be the end boss, Assault Man. As stated before, he's very glitchy, to the point where I usually can't even get a full fight with him before he phases into the wall. And when he actually does fight, there's far too much visual clutter to really figure out what's going on. He comes and goes without me really understanding anything about how his battle actually works, which can also be extended to most of the mini-bosses as well. If anything, I can commend this stage for trying to shake up the formula a bit without turning it into a completely different game. It's certainly a memorable level just for what it sets out to do, it's just not that well executed. Patchy. Rocket Launcher. Interesting concept with how you can only equip one weapon at a time. This whole stage makes me think of arcade games. It's hectic and kind of fun. The scoring system, it's fine, just not my kind of appeal. Kinda iffy too, to lock tokens behind that mechanic, but I suppose it does give you an incentive to replay the entry, try for different weapons, etc. Overall pretty chaotic and probably was by design, especially with the constant respawning Joes. Can get a little overwhelming sometimes, on top of having the score multiplier being time-based adding to the pressure. Break Dash is a trap because hitting the boss with it is pretty much impossible with his movement, and it doesn't do more than Thunder Beam, which is 10 times easier to use in this fight. Weird balancing going on here. It also seems like Assault Man visually gets stuck on walls a lot of times. Doesn't really affect the fight, but it really looks off-putting. I'm worried that he's going to clip through out of bounds anytime soon, soft-locking the battle. Yeah, I definitely saw him get stuck in walls. I didn't see him clip through them, but apparently the judges did. Flashman 85. Initially, I liked this. I was wrapped up in the lore, music, unconventional mechanics, and fast-paced gameplay. I had some reservations about the graphics, pertaining to polish and colorblindness, but I appreciated the little touches. The Wily logo on the spikes, for example. I'm not sure I noticed that. And the Jet mini-boss's danger warning when it didn't freeze and persist onto the next screen. I was tickled by the weapon announcements. I forgave the constant enemy spam because the challenge arcs felt deliberate and the checkpoints and items were where I needed them. Good old frantic fun. I normally despise ranking systems, but it wasn't until I tried getting all the tokens that I started to despise this one. I had only an inference that a higher score would open all the token barriers. Replaying the intro section, which is great for building atmosphere the first time around, becomes a slog after the umpteenth failed attempt at 100% completion. Largely due to that one very tanky Sniper Joe you have to get through before you get to all the ones that you can just cut through like butter. That did get to be a bit of a slog for me, yeah. The more I replayed, the more problems I noticed. At least 3 different enemies can crash the game due to programming oversights. Whoa, I wonder which ones. I know there was the mention earlier of the Jet mini-boss being able to crash the game if you died to it, I think. The multiplier meter depletes even while paused. Oh. And it seems to stop depleting whenever it feels like it. Yeah, I did notice there were some spots where the multiplier just froze for a bit. Enemies clip through floors, stick on walls, and have weirdly inconsistent damage collision. Rifleman Joes sometimes spawn on the wrong screen. Screen transitions with ladders and slopes are messy. Moving platform tracks aren't labeled consistently. New weapons are only occasionally useful where you pick them up. Weapon pickups don't respawn after dying, and it's bizarre that Rush Jet and Magnet Beam are additions rather than replacements, like the other pickups. Well, I mean, they're utilities that can't do damage, so I kinda understand that part. An ambitious level with entirely new enemies and major gameplay twists can be incredibly successful as long as it's been playtested to perfection. In the process of trying to achieve the 6.4 million points required to unlock the final token, and never exceeding 5.7 million, which makes this the only level in the entire contest I couldn't 100%, I've determined that your playtesting process is sabotaging your own potential as a level designer. And A-Spark. This level's fine. It's a romp, got some cute additions, but nothing really done with it. Pure enemy level. It did take the obvious route that none of the Contra or Metal Slug inspired stages in MagMammal 2 did, and fully embraced that. The music sounds vaguely Metal Slug, but I don't know if it is. It's not one of the more memorable tracks, of which the series has many, instead feeling more like the equivalent BGM filler. Hey, turns out it's from the GBA Metal Slug. Okay, well there you go. However, the vocal cues when selecting weapons are just as cheesy as I'd want them to be. Shame the contest rules disclude the possibility of collecting a rocket launch chair. Okay, now that's got my train of thought veered off, and now I'm wondering, what weapon would be the closest to a rocket launcher? I feel like it would maybe either be Photon Missile or maybe Homing Sniper? Thoughts in the comments. What would you say would be the closest weapon in the classic series to a true rocket launcher? Or launcher? I do honestly like the weapon aspect of this stage. Purely optional, with some of the strongest being locked off by requiring a weaker weapon to get to them. It's cute. The graphics are consistent, they have an amateurish quality, but when the entire stage is filled with it, it looks better than the sum of individual pieces. My main suggestion is to make more use of contrasts. Everything blends in a bit together, especially the terrain. There's a variety of Joes here, but none really stand out, just the occasional mini-boss. If I was going to go with Metal Slug / Contra route, embracing the flashy nature of those series rather than the more generic aspects would have helped this greatly. The flight segment also seemed very undercooked. The mini-boss is alright there, but nothing too memorable. What really bugs me about this stage is the sheer lack of polish. I sometimes get scared I'm going to get shunted into a floor somewhere, or worse, a boss. My heart skipped a beat when Assault Man clipped into a wall as he jumped towards it. Flashbacks of the Yggdrasil bosses soft-locking the game filled my head. Whew. That sure was a stage. Other areas include screen transitions that let me clip into terrain, being able to just miss jumping onto Rush in the flight segment, enemies falling through walls since they spawn in wrong, or their hitboxes allowing them to clip through walls since they're set up wrong. Ultimately, this stage is passable. The score system just isn't even fun here. And from what I can tell, the requirements for the later tokens are absurd. I'm not bothering with getting all the tokens here. I don't feel like grinding. I get the point, and it's not fun. We're not going to make the players grind either. It's not really a challenge, is it? Just a grind. I do kind of have to agree with that. The sheer score that you have to hit, basically seeming like it pretty much requires you to scroll certain enemies off-screen and back on after defeating them, just to defeat them again with a multiplier, that does just feel grindy. I don't know that that really added anything to the stage, other than kind of tedium there. I gave my thoughts on this after finally finishing getting the last token, but I would have changed it up a little bit. Either I would have made the score requirements a bit lower, like honestly, 5 million, 5.5 million, somewhere around there. That seems like it should have been enough. Either that, or I would have had secret little branching paths that let you go against more waves of enemies that aren't on the main path, and once you finish that path, it warps you back to where you got in, so that you can continue with the stage and not miss anything, so that you can rack up higher and higher scores. I feel like that would have been better, and it would have been a better reward for exploration. The only other thing I would say is definitely more communication is needed. The first run through, I honestly thought, hey, maybe I did it. I got to A rank, and I've been here for a long time. There was nothing until the soul-crushing moment of getting back to the token room and seeing that the star token wasn't unlocked to let me know, oh, there's a higher rank I need to hit. There was no prior knowledge of that, and that felt a little bit rude. That honestly was a bit off-putting. Like I said, the room that just is completely empty other than having icons for each of the tokens, I feel like that would have been a good place to display score goals so you knew what you were shooting for. But the idea, on paper, I honestly think the idea works. The score attack, it is a fine mechanic. It really does work. It just needs a bit of fine-tuning. Again, I think we're kind of in the range of levels that have very solid ideas, but just need some polish and fine-tuning, and I think that goes with this one too. So with that, thank you very much for watching. I hope you're enjoying the series so far, and I shall see you again next time. Until then, fare thee well. And no, I don't know why I enjoy just spinning on top of the teleporters. The spinning animations are fun and cute. Rotate!